Well, the trial has finally begun for the infamous 115 Premier League charges hanging over Manchester City's head, and I'm personally glad that it's finally happening so we can get some resolution on this one way or another. You will not find me breaking down the details of this. I don't want any part of it. In fact, my message to Manchester City fans across the world is it's probably time to sit this one out. I'm going to talk about why that is next here on Pints and Punditry at the Pitchside Pub. So as City fans, there's been this cloud hanging over the heads of the team, the players, the fan base for this entire run of success that they are on. And no one's asking for any sympathy here, let alone me, but it is great to finally see that we are going to get a resolution one way or another to this problem. Except, we're probably not going to get a resolution, at least not from having to hear about it, which is why it is really best for City fans to just stay out of this. Sit this one out, let the chips fall where they may, let the rest of the fans across the world and across England run their mouths and pop off their opinions, none of which are based on any facts, and just get out of the way on this one and let it happen. I'm going to talk about why that is here in a second, but before I do, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me down below so you can follow the channel. Get down in that comment section, let me know what you think about... I'm afraid to ask what you think about the charges because nobody has all the information, but what the heck, get in the comment section, let's see what happens. You can also leave some comments on Twitter, that's already a cesspool of misinformation, let's have some fun on there. And of course you can check out the website, pitchsidepub.com. So let's get a couple things out of the way first. Yes, I'm American, that doesn't mean my opinion doesn't matter here, I'm still a supporter, and the club is still in some danger of some massive punishments. 2, nobody has all the information. Nobody, literally nobody, even the other Premier League clubs are complaining about not having all the information and the secrecy behind this trial, which I have to say is not helping City fans in any way, shape, or form. Now, I do feel really bad for the longtime City fans who grew up in Manchester and have supported the club since the 70s, 80s, right? They didn't ask to be purchased by a state-owned team who may or may not have skirted the rules. Now, you've gotten to see a lot of glory you never thought was going to happen, so hopefully that offsets it. But if all that's negated by some charges or a massive punishment or a massive demotion, well, then it probably wasn't worth it, and you'd probably like to have your old club back. By no means does that make me plastic. I'm just admitting the facts here. No, I'm not a lifelong native Manchester City fan. Do I sound like I'm from Manchester? No, of course not. That doesn't mean I'm any less invested in the club just because I didn't grow up there and I didn't have a grandparent who passed this down to me. I love this club. I love what they've done. And I will be devastated if they face some sort of massive charges. I also will not stop supporting them, and if they have to go down to the 5th tier, to the National League, and work their way back up, I'll find a way to watch them, and I'll be there when they do. That said, you're not going to see me making a lot of arguments or getting into pissing matches on Twitter or in the comments here with fans of other clubs about this, because we simply don't have enough of the information. There's also absolutely nothing good that can come from this verdict or from getting into these arguments with fans. So you're better off just letting everybody run their mouth and sitting this out. Let's think about how this plays out here, right? There's 2 options. They get found innocent and it goes away, or they get found guilty and charged with something. Now, the something has lots of variations. It could be 10-point deduction to you're losing your Football League license and you're going down to, the 7th tier or some nonsense like that, right? So there's a wide variation of what the punishment could be, but guilty or innocent is pretty much how it comes down to. There's just various degrees of punishments for the guilty. The innocent charge is obviously what all City supporters are hoping for, right? So that we can continue to watch our club and play at the highest level and not have massive European punishments and all these sorts of things. But it's not like all of the complaining and all of the comments are going to go away if they are found to not have breached all the things they breached. If they get away with this, it's actually only going to make things worse for City fans, right? Because immediately you're going to get the conspiracy theories. Oh, they just had more lawyers than everybody else and could throw more money at the problem. There's some truth to that, but the Premier League's not exactly struggling financially. the conspiracy theories. Oh, the oil money paid off somebody, paid off the Premier League, or the Premier League didn't want to see their crown jewel team punishment and invalidate all the success of the last few years. There's not some massive conspiracy here. If that were the case, the charges would not have been levied. So none of it makes any sense. None of it is based on any truth. They're either going to be found guilty or they're not. And I don't know how it's going to turn out. But either way, the comments are not going to go away. Go on Twitter. I just because I've had to deal with it, so everybody has to deal with it. Go on Twitter and see the Man City account post anything. And if they leave the comments open, you can do it on Instagram too, any of the social media platforms. If they have the audacity to post anything positive, within 3 comments, somebody will make a 115 charges comment, right? It is hanging over everything they do, but a not guilty charge here is not going to make that miraculously go away. It's only going to make it worse. They're going to just say there's conspiracies and there's all these things. So it's not going away. So there's no win here. In fact, being found guilty, having a massive punishment, demoted a couple levels, and then working their way back up in a, quote, clean fashion would actually be a better long-term scenario for City and their fans in terms of the enjoyment of the end product, let's say 10 years down the road. Because if they are found guilty, all your Arsenal fans and all your Liverpool fans and all your Manchester United fans and everybody who loves to throw 115 in their face, they don't get to use their favorite fallback anymore, right? This is so the low-hanging fruit. This is the easy one. No one can even talk about City's greatness without talking about the charges. Well, if they get punished and they work their way back up, you can't do that anymore, right? So, not that I'm rooting for that by any stretch. I would much rather know that they did not do the things they're being blamed for doing, or accused of doing. So, I'm not rooting for that, but man, at least you kind of have to shut up, even though it would be a long trek back up to the top level. So it's no win. That's the point here, is there is no win, and getting in the middle of this pissing match with all these fans doesn't accomplish anything, because there's no way to prove innocence here, really, right? At least in the public eye, because the information is not going to be public enough. And even if they did lay it all out on the table and go, hey, we tried to get them, but really they didn't do anything wrong, nobody's going to believe it. The Premier League could release a 100-page document explaining the wonderful innocence of Manchester City. Nobody's going to believe it. Nobody's going to believe it. The average dumbass on Twitter is not going to believe it. They're certainly not going to read it. They're just going to dismiss it as a conspiracy. Same way they act like it's a conspiracy every time a bad call goes against their team. Nobody's out to get your team. There's no match fixing. There's no conspiracy here. Bad calls happen. I don't know what's going to happen here, but they either can prove it or they can't. Here's what I know about this situation. Manchester City is one of the most well-run clubs in the world. They're also one of the wealthiest clubs in the world. And when those two things meet, dominance happens. And we've seen this in other sports, particularly ones that do not have a salary cap. There are salary limitations and some spending limitations in place here that they have definitely tried to circumvent. But within the confines of what they are or aren't allowed to do, the combination of having all the funding you need and doing it competently leads to dominance. Money without competence leads to Chelsea or Manchester United. Competence without money leads to Brighton, right? And clubs like that who do a really good job but don't have the money to compete on the biggest stages, at least so they say. So they are, and it's almost impossible to argue that they are one of the most well-run businesses in world football. That also means they are going to find every loophole and every avenue to exploit the system as best they can. And frankly, they should. You want your club to do that. But you want to make sure they stay within the rules. And the question is whether City did or not. And again, I don't know the answer. I do not think they are foolish enough to just have said, we know the rules, we're going to blatantly break it and try to cover it up and hope you don't find it. Because they know the ramifications would be so great, and it just wasn't necessary to do that. Do I think they found loopholes and exploited them and maybe crossed the line? Yeah, probably. Look at the multi-club ownership model. I personally don't think that should be allowed. But City has done that on a bigger scale than any other group in the world, simply because nobody's stopping them yet, right? Look at what Todd Boehly and Clear Lake are doing with Chelsea with these long contracts with amortization, right? Should that be allowed? No, probably not. And from an accounting standpoint, it shouldn't be allowed to defer these payments like that, or defer the way you calculate them from an accounting standpoint. But until they make a rule about it, they're doing it, and that's a loophole they're exploiting. good businessmen exploit loopholes. It is always the job of the organization to close those loopholes, and they are always behind, right? They're always a step behind. The question is whether City went too far in trying to exploit these and did some things that they should not have done, and or tried to cover them up, because that's a big part of this too, is not just the rule breaking, but that they weren't so forthright with providing the information they need when it was first brought to their attention. Again, I don't know how that's going to play out. I just want some resolution. But there's no good resolution here. There's no good resolution for City fans. So my point here is just sit this one out on social media, guys, right? Just anybody who is a content creator, and I'm not a City content creator, right? I'm a European football from an American perspective content creator. That's the angle of my channel. But I'm pretty open. As you see, I keep pointing to the Phil Foden jersey hanging on my wall behind me. I'm clearly a City supporter, and a proud one. And I will be a proud one whether they are guilty or innocent of these charges. But I'm not going to get into it. I'm not going to get into it with fans, and I recommend that any publicly facing City account, whether it's on YouTube or Instagram or Twitter, or you're just a journalist or whatever, it's not a battle you can win. It's not a battle you can win, and it's not one where you're going to look good coming out of. So just sit it out. Just sit it out. Let's let this trial happen. Let's focus on the on the play on the pitch. We got Champions League coming up. We're in first place in the league. Let's enjoy that, because frankly, it may be taken away from us. And in the meantime, let's enjoy every last bit of it and hope it gets validated, whether the other fans want to buy that validation or not. And the complaining and the yelling and the conspiracy theories and the name calling and the 115 charges stuff is only going to get louder. And the more City folks publicly fight back, the more it stokes that fire. If you want this stuff to die down, shut up. Shut up, and I'm going to shut up about it too. I have no interest in discussing these charges with anybody. I'm very interested to see how it plays out. I'm reading things from credible sources and from people who understand the situation. I'm trying to consume as much information as I can, and maybe I'll try to recap it when it's done. We'll see. I'm hesitant on that, but I'm not getting into it. I'm not defending the club publicly. I'm not ostracizing them. I'm not admitting guilt. I'm not presuming innocence. I just want it to be over. I just want it to be over. And trying to defend the club to the masses and to the idiots on social media is a fool's errand, and I highly recommend that nobody try to do it. What are your thoughts? Get in the comments. Keep it clean. Let me know what you think, but go ahead and get in that comment section. Let's see how that turns out. You can also leave some comments on Twitter at PitchsidePub. Make sure you hit that subscribe button for me down below so you can follow the channel for when we talk about non-City things. And of course, check out the website, pitchsidepub.com. Thanks as always for joining us here on Pints and Punditry at the Pitchside Pub.